Alright, let me just make sure that I am live, because sometimes YouTube is a little bit weird. Alright, looks like I am indeed live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. My name is Asmogan, and today I have a very, very cool host with me. I have provided a link to his channel in the description below. Time Walker Turgor. Very cool host. He is an interesting content creator. You have about 1.1k subs, or is it a little bit more than that?
Yeah, it's 1.1k subs. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say your main content is?
It's basically World of Warcraft and a bunch of other stuff that I feel like doing. So
yes. So would you say variety channel, or is it mainly like it's very clear cut that's pretty much World of Warcraft?
I try to make it a variety channel as much as World of Warcraft chains me, you know.
Yeah, I get you. I myself was a WoW player until I quit during Shadowlands. Played from vanilla WoW all the way to Shadowlands, and that was just that was my stopping point. I got fed up. But I hope you still enjoy the game. I hope it still provides you plenty of entertainment. That's the point of the video game, right?
No, it doesn't provide me enjoyment. I am no longer subbed. But, you know, the grift never ends.
Fair enough. All right, so today we're going to be talking about The Last Jedi. Now, I do want to, real quick, just let everybody know that this interview spot came about from an interesting situation. There's a video I uploaded earlier on the channel that pretty much goes over it. I'm not going to hark on it too much, because that's not what the stream and this convo are going to be about. But if anyone's curious about what led to this, there's a little bit of background info in that video. So it's my most recent uploaded thing, so feel free to check that out after our little debate here. Other than that, the only other, I want to say, like, opening cleanup thing to cover is, because the topic originally that was posed to have an interview about, we both agree on, we decided to look through some other things that we might not, and it came down to you, Turgor, like The Last Jedi, and I do not. Now, as kind of like an opener, do you want to go first in establishing why you like it, and I can go and say why I don't, or do you want to be the other way around?
I think I can start by saying what I like about it.
Okay.
If it's okay. So, one of the most important things for me and why I like it is because it feels different from the other Star Wars movie, especially in this new Disney trilogy. Because I think the first one, The Force Awakens, was way too much A New Hope-ish, to call it the least. And the other one, made by J.J. Abrams, I think it was, that was just terrible, in my opinion. And this one hits like the middle ground where it tries to move away from what could be some of the tropes that Star Wars had. And one of them that I really like that they move away from is the idea of the chosen one. You know, the whole spiel with Rey's parents being nobodies. I really like that because it moves from the Skywalker family that was this chosen family of people made to protect the universe and the Force, and it moves on to nobody. In a way, making it sound and seem like anybody can be a real hero if they stand up to the challenge.
That's an interesting interpretation of the Star Wars story. Personally, when it comes to interpreting Star Wars, I never really interpreted it as now. Yes, Luke, and when it comes to Anakin, there is very much a chosen one story there. But there was never, in terms of the overall universe, there's never been this idea that only the Skywalkers were really meant to protect and safeguard the universe. It's more or less that they were birthed and came about because of a specific situation that they needed to resolve, and it came about by their bloodline. But generally speaking, like, there were Jedi before them, before Disney changed the canon. We had Revan, who was, I guess you could also say, the chosen one of his time. You have several others just in Anakin's timeline as well that you could interpret as their own chosen ones based on their backstories, like Mace Windu, Yoda, Obi-Wan himself. I mean, there's many individuals in this universe that have kind of established that while it's not just anybody can be the hero, anybody can just be the good guy, but anybody can fight and fight the big fight together. It's not really a story, I don't think, about this just chosen sect of people and everybody else just serves no purpose and can't be a hero. I've never interpreted it that way, and I don't know anybody who has. But it's interesting that you kind of got that from the story and you felt that The Last Jedi changed that. Now for me, why I don't like The Last Jedi, what I find fundamentally polarizing about it is, by the sounds of it, the same reasons you enjoy it. I don't like that it differentiates itself so much from the tone of Star Wars and it tries to depart itself too much. Now, there is something to be said about a healthy level of innovation and change in a sequel, and especially when there's been a big gap of time between this trilogy and the previous. However, there are certain aspects about a universe that need to be maintained on some concrete level. Otherwise, you might as well just start a completely new story rather than co-opt a name like Star Wars. If you're going to change so much, and if you're going to completely depart so much, then why are you intentionally, if anything, hurting yourself and the brand that you're co-opting if you're just going to go that far from it? People expect something with Star Wars. They expect a certain tone, a certain approach, and certain aspects of the universe to be maintained. Whereas with Disney's trilogy, the sequel trilogy, I think in particular The Last Jedi is offensive when it comes to in what ways it tries to add things to the universe, but in fact it kind of just parodies almost things that have been done before. I mean, the final battle in The Last Jedi, for example, was fought on a salt planet. I felt Hoth vibes really strongly from that, but they were clearly trying to differentiate themselves with just a slight aesthetic change. But it was still a defensive position, it was still being hit. It's stuff like that throughout the film where there's clearly a level of it that's inspired from something previous, but it's such a small thing, and the ways they try and change are so epidermal, they're so like skin deep, that it feels almost insulting to anybody who actually is fans of the franchise. So overall, I dislike and would even say almost hate The Last Jedi for its just sheer, I want to say hubris behind its writing. There's a lot of hubris behind it. So yeah, it seems like we have a very strong dividing line off the top. So you have the floor. Where do you want to move from here?
You're mentioning something interesting there, that they could have as well made a new Star Wars story and technically not connected to the previous trilogy, correct?
Yeah, they could have.
I want to make sure, since English is not my first language, I need to connect things in different ways here.
Yeah, in fact, I actually wanted them to do that. When The Force Awakens was announced, one of my first theories, because you remember how everybody was excited, I assume, right? Every Star Wars fan was just hype. Nobody was assuming anything really bad from it. We were all like excited, we were eager, we wanted to see where they were going to go with it. And for me, and I want to say most people, we were expecting a brand new arc. Well, initially, when it was very first announced, keep in mind, this is before Luke and other actors, veteran actors, were being announced to officially be coming back. The very first, teaser trailers and stuff. I was eager for a brand new story, a new arc. Maybe some callbacks to, or some references to where Luke, Leia, and Han are in the universe. Maybe they passed away, or maybe they're out there doing something. But widely speaking, what they did still survives and still holds true, but there's a new story to tell. There's a new foe to face. There's new things being done, and what was once there is merely just kind of background dressing. It's just basically this storyline's ancient history almost. So it's not like corely tied to the events that happened in this new story. I was hoping they would go their own route with Finn, which was a great basis for him later on when they did announce that it was going to officially be connected to the previous stories, which I wasn't super fan of. But despite that, when he was introduced, I was like, okay, a former stormtrooper who escapes the life. They had so much they could have done. Like literally a whole trilogy could have been dedicated to just Finn. Not any lightsaber wielding Jedi, Sith, nothing. A former stormtrooper turned loose, betrayed the principles he'd been brainwashed since near birth to obey, and also kind of show what happens when he faces stormtroopers who are still locked into that lifestyle. How, what kind of confrontation or phrase will they get involved in? What kind of headbutting are they going to do? And how will he hesitate to face his former brothers in arms, especially since he escaped that life, but the sad thing is he sees a reflection of himself in them. And, with that, again, there's just so many, just with Finn, so many amazing stories they could have done and made a trilogy out of. And not even really included a new Jedi, a new Sith, or anything. But instead, Finn gets relegated, starting with The Last Jedi, in my opinion. He gets relegated to start being a side character, whose involvement to the main core plot starts to diminish strongly. So, I will say this, it was much worse in the Return, I almost said Return of Jedi. No, that's actually a better film. Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, that film did him way dirtier than this one, but this one still did him dirty, if you ask me. He downright stealing his self-sacrifice towards the end, which would have been not my way for him to go, and certainly not how I wanted his character to develop, but with how the two movies up to that point had, that was as good as way to go as any and would have justified his arc in this film. But instead, he stopped from sacrificing himself, and in one of the stupidest scenes I have ever seen. Yeah, like Finn for me is a great example of how this trilogy kind of botched what it set up very strongly.
I understand. Now, regarding Finn, I have to be honest with you. I think that's the whole give him his own stuff was what Rian Johnson planned to do with him, with the whole casino scene, and as you mentioned, the sacrifice that got botched, you could say. But the biggest problem in Finn's story in The Last Jedi, and I will say wholeheartedly as a person that likes that movie, is the character of Rose Tycho. That's really what screws over anything good that Finn may have done in the movie. And I think it makes the movie lose a lot of value because people always remember the Rose Tycho scenes in the casino with the camels.
Oh yeah, and the thing is that whole they wasted so much plot in what was it? I don't even remember the name of the planet now.
It was a casino planet something.
Yeah, it was. That's the thing. It was such a waste of time and plot that I can't even remember the fucking name of it. Canto Bite, was that it?
Yes, I think that was it. They've made a book about it, if I remember well.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I ain't reading that book. Okay, real quick, let me welcome everybody who's in the chat real quick. James Knighton, welcome. Also welcome Ludus, also known as Librarian in the chat, and welcome Siege. How you doing? But yeah. So Siege says, yep, that kind of story has a lot of potential for me. I feel there is a lot of lost potential within the Disney sequel trilogy. Yep, that's very much my take. I hope everyone's doing well. Yes, I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Turgor?
I'm okay. Enjoy my time.
That's good. Okay. So, well, what do we hit next? So, I kind of brought up, the weakness of how they developed Finn's character. You brought up, you consider a strong weakness being with Rose Tico. So we both acknowledge that there's some weak character development. Would you say there's a character you felt that was strongly developed through into The Last Jedi? Like you felt was handled correctly and was given the proper building blocks for?
If I say yes, it's gonna turn into a bloodbath. But I think...
I mean, you're here to debate it, man.
Yeah, that's true. I think Luke Skywalker, while many people consider that was disrespectful and stuff, I think that by the end of it, it kind of went into the proper way,
I will agree in the sense that I thought, well, a little bit of the Luke we once knew came back towards the end, but the rest of the film, I absolutely hated his characterization. I mean, I think it comes with the storytelling we get a lot in modern Hollywood. There's a lot of focus on this postmodernist kind of interpretation of everybody who achieved something great in the previous past will grow old, ragged, narcissistic, and super downtrodden with everything that they've done. Everything that they've done has to be dismantled, has to be broken down, and has to be replaced with something new. This is something very strongly that I dislike in modern writing, and it's very strong in The Last Jedi. That's why a lot of people really don't like the characterization of Luke, especially myself. I won't say necessarily especially myself. I do think there are people who go a little more overboard than I would go, but there are just strong departures from the core that made up Luke's character that we saw in the sequel trilogy. We saw in the original trilogy that is completely abandoned for this crotchety old dude that has next to nothing to do with what any of us recall Luke to have been. And I know that oftentimes the excuses that is made is, well, hi, Kill Team Hungry. Just came to say hi, my dudes. I'm just puking from the topic at hand. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm not going too hard about this. This is more of a friendly debate, less so than some like serious like argument. But keep going with what I was saying. With Luke's character, I think that it's fair for some people to bring up that, okay, well, over time, especially with the events that they wrote happened with Luke, that he would become a bit more downtrodden, he'd become more depressed. I'm very curious to get your take on this. But I think the thing that makes people, by a large portion, start to agree that how they went about making him this crotchety old dude that's unhappy with what has happened in his life is they destroyed his character previously by showing a flashback to when he was the head of the Jedi Order and the new burgeoning Jedi Order, and he confronted and sensed Kylo's corruption in the Force as Snoke was reaching out to him. So instead, Luke sensed the darkness growing, and his immediate response was to ignite his lightsaber, and he almost killed him. Now, this is something that there's no explanation for. There's no setup why Luke, between what we saw of him as a character and as a person in the original trilogy, and that point of that flashback, there is no zilch explanation for what turned Luke from a hopeful person who threw his lightsaber aside against Darth Vader because he believed there was some semblance of good in him left despite him being overly controlled and corrupted by the dark side. He tossed his saber aside and let the Anakin invader come back out, and even sacrificing himself. How did we get that young hopeful man become the leader of the Jedi Order, ready to kill his nephew at the single sense of darkness, as opposed to trying to help him, trying to guide him away from it? For me, I don't think there's any argument to be had there that was just a butchering of Luke's character. And to use that as justification for the crotchety old guy we deal with throughout that movie is, for me, just an absolute smack in the face. They did absolutely nothing to justify the more ragged man we see. But what do you think?
Now, I agree with you on the whole thing that modern writing is trying to kill everything that was once nice and good and stuff. I agree. That's why I don't watch deconstruction of the superhero archetype and stuff like The Boys and The Watchmen. I sometimes want my heroes to be good guys. And I understand your point about looks somehow. It doesn't really make sense, and I agree with that when you think about it like this. Since what was the last movie called? Return of the Jedi. You see Luke trying to somehow bring his father to the light and having compassion and stuff, and then you are right. He basically almost ignites his saber and is ready to kill his own nephew. And I think those moments are put in such a way, when you take it linearly like this, that it looks bad. But
well, the problem is they make us interpret it linearly because they provided no buffer. They gave us no detail between the last time we saw Luke and this movie in terms of the timeline. what has happened to kill Luke's former utter downright staunch belief in the good in people and being able to bring people back even from the depths of darkness that Vader was in. What took him from that to being ready to kill someone at the slightest hint that they might be corrupted by the dark side? They don't give us anything, so they leave us with only a linear interpretation.
Yeah, but in comes now my personal and favorite theory that I like to expose when it comes to talking about this, is that Luke is still a human at that point, and there is this thing that sometimes happens when you have a lack of judgment, a moment of weakness when you give into something you wouldn't normally do. It's like that thought that sometimes springs in your head. Maybe if I kick this ball, I'm gonna break a window or something. Maybe I should do it. But I know it's kind of childish and stuff, but
I think there's a pretty strong departure from that and killing your nephew.
it is. I agree with that. But then again, also the things are a little bit different. It could also be, the shock of sensing that. I could go the liberal way and call it's trauma from the Dark Vader stuff, but I would just be lying with that one.
Yeah, I just don't see it. It was just too strong of a departure. Maybe if Kylo went at him first, maybe if there was some setup with Kylo, like maybe it's kind of like Kylo started slowly getting more aggressive, started threatening other students, started kind of acting like a psychopath, Like, if there was some more flashbacks on that, maybe cut out all of Canto Bight and give us a little bit more of that buff, maybe I would accept the argument that because of all of that and showing Luke trying to help him, but it's completely failing, maybe give it this vibe of a hopeless situation, then maybe. But all we get is a single flashback. Well, technically, 3 versions of the same flashback from 3 different perspectives. One being Kylo's and one being Luke's. Actually, no. Oh, yeah, there's only 2. Yeah, one of each of those interpretations of the situation. Actually, didn't Luke provide a previous explanation and then it got switched to the reveal of what actually happened? I always remember there being 3 of the same flashback for some reason. I'll just assume there's 2.
I
But
know
yeah, we get
Kylo showed Rey his version of the whole situation while she saw it, or I think heard it from Luke, if I remember well.
Yeah, but yeah, like they just don't give us anything. So they this is a failure of the writing. They completely botched giving us the justification for Luke's change. And that is why so many people, including myself, absolutely hated the character. In fact, even Mark Hamill himself hated how and disagreed with Rian Johnson on every single characterization of Luke in this story. He said it himself in multiple interviews, ironically advertising the film. So it's just, this is a case where the writing completely failed to justify the alterations in the characters' motivations and behaviors. They didn't put in the legwork. So I hate the idea that you put the onus on the fans to fill in the gaps of your bad storytelling. So it's my job to come up with the theories and the explanations for why the change, where you can just sit on your butt and leave it up to me. That's not my job. My job is to take what I'm given and come away with what I want and what I instinctually come away with. And what I came away with was they didn't understand Luke's character and they didn't care.
No, you are right on that one. It shouldn't really come to viewers to find out what the author really wanted to say if he's vague about it or if he lacks certain explanations for things.
Yeah, and in this case, it's not even like they could have. It's not even like they could have done it, but they had so many other things going on that they had to do. Canto Bight, as we both kind of agreed at this point, is completely pointless in the greater arc of the story, and didn't really add much. It just felt like a huge detour. Can you imagine if they took that entirely out and left that whole chunk of the film open to doing multiple flashbacks over the course of a long training period between Rey and Luke, and we slowly get again that step-by-step drop from Kylo as he goes from being a hopeful young student of Luke at the new Jedi Temple, learning the ways of the Force, learning how to control everything, and then one day he just starts acting differently, and it starts out slow. We get like one flashback. It's just he seems kind of evasive with Luke, but still does his training, still acts accordingly. Maybe another one, he gets into a fight with some of the other young aspirants and younglings, and then he starts pushing them. Luke tells him off, tries to take him away, and tries to get him to calm down, understand that he needs to keep his emotions in check. Again, show that course of events. All in the place of Canto Bight, you would have had a 10 times better film, and I could then believe why Luke became this crotchety old bastard. Because you put in the legwork to describe it, but they just didn't. But we've harked on that enough, unless there's something else you want to add.
No, not really.
No, okay. So, we'll just move on with characterization, because unless you have like another big character you think was either done well, or another one you think was done badly, is there any other characters you want to bring up?
If you want to know, I think this one everybody agrees with me on. I think just Snoke was done poorly, awfully.
Oh yeah, he just got killed. That was bad. That was just like the build up with him in the previous film, and to just how they did him dirty in this one. Yeah, like that was. It'd be one thing if they fought him and then together they overpowered Snoke, but just assassinated him and then fought his guards.
Yeah, and I think they do it even worse in the next one, Return of Skywalker or Rise of Skywalker.
Where he was it was much worse, because in that one it was Palpatine, who we knew his power level.
Yeah, and some sort of clone thingy. That one was the worst in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that was much worse. I'll take Snoke getting just unceremoniously cut in half over that any day. Real quick. So let's take a quick break here and just read through some of the comments, just see if they bring up anything. Hey, Archmagos, Reductor Sethrin, welcome to the stream. Hey, I think Greg is still there, but he might have left. I tried to justify the goings-on with Luke when this is from Siege. When the movie first came out, but after a second viewing, I knew where I landed. I was not happy. Yeah, it's very much where I'm hitting. Kill Team Hungry, Greg says, I was a diehard Star Wars fan until The Last Jedi. Then I grew up and went over to Warhammer 40k. Okay. Rest in peace, Star Wars. You deserved much better. Yeah. For me, I was about the same. I haven't given up on Star Wars necessarily. Like, this is where I mentally like differentiate from a lot of other people. I don't really say like, oh, I quit this or I gave up on this. The only thing I'd say that for is Warcraft, but that's just because Blizzard did me dirty so hard. My good memories are almost dead. But with most franchises and stuff like that, even Star Trek, which that's been going down the shitter pretty hard with STD, with Picard, with all the modern shows, back compared to how it was in the 90s. You know, when we look back at that stuff, I still a fan of Star Trek. I'd say I'm still a Trekkie. I'm just not a fan of the new stuff. If I want to watch good Star Trek, I watch The Next Generation. I watch Deep Space Nine. Even Voyager's better than what we got now. Enterprise, even the original trilogy. If I want a good laugh. Generally, you know, that's my take on like fandoms. Like even with Star Wars, I'm very unhappy with 90% of what Disney has done. But that doesn't mean I would say I'm any less of a Star Wars fan. I still like the original trilogy. I still like the prequels. And yes, I've liked the prequels all along. And any of y'all who went from being like, the prequels suck, man, to after the Disney trilogy came out, you went, you know what, prequels ain't bad, man. I was saying that the whole time. Fuck you.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, I grew up with them. They're good. I stand by that. Anyway, welcome Homeless Stone. Let me see if I can read one or two more of these, and then we'll move on. Without the bitch fight between Johnson and Abrams, the trilogy could have been okay-ish. And that is a fair thing to bring up when it comes to this trilogy. What hurt it a lot was the fact that the snake changed heads in the middle, as opposed to one solid vision throughout. I mean, they later on admitted, Daisy Ridley admitted on what was the talk show she went on? I don't think it matters. She was on a talk show and she admitted flat out that one film she was like Obi-Wan's daughter. The next film she was a nobody with no connections to any big family, and then the Rise of Skywalker came out, and then all of a sudden you're Palpatine's granddaughter. It's like, okay, is jumping around a lot. So, but that right there is a big indicator of just how little vision this trilogy had, and the fact that it basically had none. They were working movie to movie, film to film, scene to scene. So that, I think, is what hurts it a lot. And in this film in particular, with just how much hubris Rian Johnson brought to the table, I think The Last Jedi was a lot of people's last straw. Yeah. All right, so we pretty much gone over all characters. So I think we'll go into like the one thing I will compliment about the film: visual effects. I liked the visual effects in The Last Jedi. I think this goes for not just like CG stuff, but also scene composition, sets. I liked them. Even though I think it's a direct like harkening back to Hoth and the Battle of Hoth. Even the planet that they stopped on at for the final battle, I kind of like the idea of like a salt planet with the top of it looks like snow, but then it gets dig up and there's a bunch of red salted crystal. I think that's really cool aesthetically. Generally speaking, I did like the aesthetic of the film, and there's really no special effects I can think of off the top of my head that I would say were detrimental or done really badly. But what would you say, Turgor?
Oh yeah, I agree with that one. But when it comes to movies and visuals and stuff like that, I'm.
Did I lose connection?
Can you hear me?
Turgor, can you hear me?
Can you? Hello? Do you hear me now?
Hmm. Uh-oh. That's not good.
No? Nothing? No?
Maybe he's having some technical issues. Hold on, let me try and hang up and reconnect. Hello?
Do you hear me?
Uh-oh. Well, while we... Okay,
So do you hear me now?
yes, I can hear you now. There we go. Okay. Yeah, we had a bit of brief technical issues there.
Oh yeah, it was Discord messing up.
Yeah. Alright, so, yeah. Visual effects. What did you think?
Not really that big on the whole visual effects and things of movies. Like right now, I started watching an anime called Legends of the Galaxy Heroes or Galaxy Heroes. It's pretty old, and you can see that in the way it's made. I look for the stuff more in like the story aspects or gaffs, parts of dialogue that are interesting, you know.
Almost done. Did we talk about the disrespect the actor for Admiral Ackbar got at the end of the filming? No, I wasn't. Well, the thing is, when it comes to this debate, I do think when it comes to bringing up things outside the film, it's more or less just to give context for things in film. I don't know as to if we bring up that situation, it really has much to do with the actual film quality itself. I guess I guess the most I could do to make that argument is maybe it affected, like, a part of that is a display of like the mentality of the creative team behind the film. So I guess we could bring it up in that sense. But generally, it's not very clear cut directly a film and plot related event. But for the sake of argument, I'll bring it up. Do you know about the situation, Tor?
No, I have no idea about this.
All right, so the actor who played Admiral Ackbar, not incorrect, they brought back the original actor to play the role. And you know how in The Last Jedi, he basically has no speaking lines and he dies pretty early on.
Yep.
So what happened once they wrapped up filming with him is they asked him to come, and apparently he was also being talked down to and stuff like that before this, but not like anything major. But he was after his scenes were all wrapped up and they were cutting the cutting room floor and they were wrapping up filming on the set. He was asked to come over by Ryan Johnson, and he was expecting the Ryan Johnson to bring up something of like maybe a scene, or maybe have like a quick bit conversation in front of the behind the scenes crew and get some filming in, of giving him a chance to kind of like thanks for the opportunity to come back to the role. But instead he handed him, the I don't even know, I can't remember what they're called, but the clip thing, or they clip it in front of the camera right once they start filming, and it's like action, that thing. They handed him that and told him to yell, "It's a wrap." And the actor felt incredibly insulted by that because of the way they were kind of demeaning his performance and the character that he played as, on top of not giving him pretty much any lines, not giving him a significant role in the events that occurred. Generally speaking, it was a falling out between the actor and the crew. Now, I wasn't going to bring it up because, again, there's next to nothing in that really affects the film. The most I can say in terms of bringing that up, in terms of the film, is it does reflect a level of blasé kind of dismissiveness that the crew working on the film had. That is the most I get out of that in terms of how it affected the film. But other than that, I can't really make an argument for... I can't really make an argument for how else that would affect or indicate anything within the movie itself.
Well, from my point of view, it clearly indicates why the character spent so little time on screen and had no lines and just got yeeted very quickly.
Yeah, it seems Johnson is a malicious piece of work, I heard. Well, he was asked after the film came out and it got ripped to shreds by reviewers. He was asked in an interview if there's like anything, and now that some time has passed, do you think there's anything about your film that's flawed at all? And he went, nope, I think it's completely perfect. So that's the kind of guy we're talking about, so.
I'm not really that surprised about that one.
Nah. But the thing is, I think he's just a more arrogant example of what most of Hollywood thinks, anyway. But I'd say that does kind of flow into a plot-based conversation, though. The underutilization, and Siege kind of made me think of it. I will credit him with this. The underutilization of the veteran characters. Now, this kind of harkens back a little bit to what I was saying about Luke and how they decided to bring up Canto Bight and that whole situation with Rose and Finn. But they decided to, and they thought that was more important than, again, giving us the building blocks that led to Luke not only becoming a crotchety old bastard, but also giving us some kind of justification for why he reacted the way he did when he sensed darkness in Kylo's heart. That was, that harkens back to that. They decided to fill the film up with the new characters and the new situations, which I'm okay with. But when you put a character like Luke in the film and you pose him as a significant character, or not just to Luke, goes for Leia, and this, I guess, well, Han was dead, but Admiral Ackbar, veteran characters, you can't just put them in your film as background dressing when lots of people who are watching the film know these characters, and they're still getting to know your new ones. Which is why I recommend not bringing in the veteran characters until like the third film if you're going to do a trilogy. Personally, because you want to give the fan base a chance to build with these new characters. I again would have written a story where they were relegated to just legacy characters, as in like their history. They're called back to. They might still be alive and you might still encounter them, but the story's not about them anymore, it's about these new characters. But they decided to write them in and have them directly involved so the studio and the film could benefit from marketing with them. But a consequence of that is now you've established them as being back in, so now you have to tell us what's happened with them. Because guess what? Your audience cares 10 times more about characters that they've been rewatching in the same films over and over again for the last 2 to 3 decades, and in some, actually, even more than that, nearly, like, how many, fucking, Jesus, how many years? If we don't include the prequels, obviously, because that wouldn't call back to Luke or Leia. Jeez, it was the fucking
It was in the
80s last time, I'm pretty
70s,
sure.
right?
Well, the first film was the first film was 70s. The second and third film were 80s, I'm pretty sure.
Probably around those.
So that's like almost 50 years, 60 years. So it's a big fucking number, I know that. Yeah, because the films, at the very least, like 35 years somewhere in there since we last saw these characters together and on film. Lots and lots of people not only themselves continue to grow up watching these films, but at that point had children who they were having watch those films with them. So people are there in that movie theater, sitting down, having bought a ticket, partially and mainly, I would argue, to figure out, hey, what's happened with Luke since we last saw him? What's happened with Leia since we last saw him? Is Admiral Ackbar alive? Does the species live that long? What's he up to? Lots of people are thinking that when they sit down, especially when you market it with these characters in there. I mean, look at the poster I brought up for The Last Jedi. It has Luke right there in the front cover, and Leia. It shouldn't, based on their significance in the plot. I'll tell you that. But they marketed it like that, so you given the audience an expectation, and they couldn't live up to it. So that's another major strike for me against the film is its underutilization of the veteran characters. And it's downright, I want to say, we've already gone over Luke, but I do think they did a little bit less with Leia, but they still did it a little bit with Leia by knocking her out for part of the film, literally, and making her, I don't even know what you would call that, a non-factor, I guess. Yeah, we don't learn anything about Leia, her past, and what she's been up to. Han's dead. So what little we got of what he'd been up to was basically he divorced Leia to continue being a smuggler. Which I hated, but okay. Like, yeah, it's just the veteran characters. Like, I can't think of a single one that was given plenty of screen time and given at least a couple scenes to establish themselves again and give us a sense of what they've been up to, how they've changed, and why they've changed. It's just they were in this for scene dressing. They were there to justify the marketing and give them, trailer fodder. But that's it. Like they don't do nearly anything significant. And we don't learn about them and their now recent past. They're just there.
I mean, from one point of view about Luke, the story doesn't really give us much on that one, since after he tried to eat his own nephew, and then the Jedi Temple got screwed. I think it's implied in the movie or said, I can't remember now, that he became an isolationist, whatever, on that planet where the green milk comes from. So I don't think there's really much to build from that side of the thing. With Leia, I agree. There could have been things, to build up from.
I already gave you an example of how Luke could have been built up, though. Flashbacks during training.
Yes, he did. I think it's implied she was in a lesbian relationship with Holdo. Yes.
Yeah, that was partially implied. Hey Nathan, where did this debate stem from? It's kind of out of the blue. I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but with the shit that happened on Twitter with the debate with the pro-femmarine crowd, I offered a interview spot that coward Jack Frost didn't want to take to anybody who wanted to come on and interview about something. Turgor wanted to hop on, but he agreed with me on the female Space Marine debate, so we decided to sit down, figuratively speaking, and harken out like, okay, what's something else we disagree about that we can make into like a debate, and this was the topic. Yeah.
No, to be fair, I've watched your latest video regarding Jack Frost, and I don't fully agree with you. You know,
In what part?
on the Fabius Bio part.
You
With
don't agree with that? Okay.
the
Why did you agree?
well, it comes more out of not personal. What's the word? Okay, so the Emperor is built during the Horus Heresy and Horus Heresy in general. That he's this great creature outside human understanding, except when he is in easy to understand because it depends on the writer. And he created the Primarchs and the Space Marines out of their gene seed after things, and he made this ultimate human being that had no equal in the galaxy at that point. To have Fabius Bile and of course Belisarius, I also
You
hate
got to
that
keep
guy.
in mind that I mentioned this, but Fabius Bile is aided by the Chaos Gods and their powers. Now, yeah, he's not a fan of Chaos, but he can still utilize them. He's still part of Chaos, just begrudgingly. Now, if he wasn't part of Chaos and didn't have any kind of access whatsoever to the warp powers, I'd agree with you. Like there'd be no chance in hell. But if there's an equal to the Emperor's genius and power, it would be the Chaos Gods and their powers.
And apparently Belisarius call.
Through Belisarius Call as their agent, I do think that he could make female Space Marines. But
I
again, we're talking about basically they'd be more demon and demonic horror than they would be Space Marine.
yeah, and I know. Belisarius, no. Fabius Bio can make clones of Primarchs. Bad ones,
Yeah,
of
he
course.
made a clone of Fulgrim.
Yeah, I know the one that's stuck in what's the zoo? The Zoo of the Silent King?
Trays in the Infinite's fucking library
Yeah,
personal stash.
that zoo thing.
Yeah, stashed in there.
I just don't
But
think.
keep in mind, I don't want female Space Marines really at all. But if there would be, the only way I'd be able to accept it in terms of it making sense in the lore is if they did it like that. It just does in no capacity does it make sense, or is it acceptable for a loyalist like fucking what's his name? Fucking yeah, Call. And there's no way for Call. I think like I'm already mad with the Primaris shit, but Fabius Bile, like I can see it happening.
It's this bridge I don't really want crossed. It was already crossed with Call and the Primaris, but I don't.
I do, like I said, I do. I'm not like advocating for that. I'm just
I know.
that in the video that was like a small sub thing of like that's the only way I could see it happening.
Oh, I know. I just decided to chime in.
Alright, where were we? Shoot, I think I lost my train of thought. So we went through characters, went through scenes. Now we're kind of going over underutilization of characters. Did we finish that or?
We did talk about Leia having a lesbian lover. I think.
Yeah, that was that was only subtly implied. I don't know as this that's actually been written confirmed anywhere.
I don't think it's confirmed. I think it's only implied. You know, like those Sapio things with the two chicks that lived in the same house and had a bunch of fun and stuff, but they were just best friends and stuff.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, anything else you want to say about the underutilization of the veteran characters or no?
I don't like what they did with Yoda in a way. That somehow for that part with Luke, he had to, I feel, be out of character in a way, if that makes sense, and then just strike down the Jedi teachings and stuff, which might be the last in the universe. So, you know, they're kind of important.
Well, they were, but Rey stole them.
I don't remember that.
Okay, so you remember Leia burns the tree, and he says, "It's just a tree." Pretty much burns
Yeah.
it down, right?
Yep.
Sacred Jedi text. At the end of the film, it's shown that in the ship that Rey took to save the survivors of the fight on the salt planet, she had stashed away in a bag the Sacred Jedi texts. She stole them.
Okay, that one I didn't remember.
Oh, let me see if I can pull up the clip. Rey, Last Jedi. Rey has Jedi books. There we go. We later find out Rey still has the books on the Millennium Falcon, which we found out at the end of the film.
Okay.
It's not a good sign, man. I remember the film better than you, and I hate this film.
Apparently, seems so.
Oh god, I don't know. Maybe hatred's a better fuel for that small stuff. But yeah,
Probably.
Yoda didn't burn down the text. When you find that out at the end of the movie, where she still has it. When he said it's just a tree, it literally was just the tree, because the thing in the tree, the text, she stole.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So
I like what stuff and things mentioned in your chat regarding, I think, the Leia and Holdo thing. It's subtle, so they can edit it out for foreign markets like China.
Oh, where's that? About try to millennia, stuff. Didn't work fully. It's subtle, so they can edit out for foreign markets like China. I'm not sure. What was that in reference to?
To the
The Holdo thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say. Again, I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere, and I've only watched the film twice. I think once in theaters and once on Disney Plus, just because I was trying to confirm some things. After I watched it forever ago. But yeah, when it comes to that lesbian thing, again, I just haven't seen it confirmed anywhere. And I didn't pick it up while watching it. Like, I only remember them like looking at each other and giggling when talking about Finn. Which is about it. Like, other than that, I can't think of any hints that I would even actually call hints at that. Like, a look and a giggle is not a lot.
Yeah.
But that's me. The complete non-usage of Anakin Skywalker should be a point. I did make that point. Well, no, I made that point more about Luke. Well, thing is, I'm totally fine with them not using Anakin in the new trilogy. I mean, let's be honest, the Skywalker saga ended at Return of the Jedi. Like, that was the wrap up of that. Again, this trilogy, in my opinion, I still stand by this, should at best have had the legacy characters as cameos, but it should have little to nothing to do about them. And this should have been a trilogy to establish a new arc, a new story with a new enemy. Instead, because they knew that wasn't going to sell as well as bringing back the old characters, they decided to bring back the old characters as insulting window dressing in scenes. But they should have started fresh with the arcs of what Luke and Anakin and the rest of our old crew did during their lifetime, being not ancient history, but being by that point old history. Like, it's been decades, it's been years. And yeah, have a cameo or two. I would say keep the Jedi alive, please. Like, don't undo the accomplishments of the old films. Set up a new threat with new consequences, not repeating the same shit. And at this point, the Jedi Order's fucked. Like, they can't even get restarted at any point. They keep getting slaughtered. But yeah, I just this trilogy should not have been so directly involved with the legacy characters. Their arc was done. They had been wrapped up. They should have been retired, successful badasses that we got cameos of. Nothing more.
You do
But
make an
more
interesting.
just even in the background watching Ben, just like a cameo, not speaking. Maybe have him yelling silently. Um, Maybe something like that would have been fine. I just don't think it's necessary. Like a complete non-usage of Anakin, I think is fine. I don't think like there's so many other things that I do think are like direct insults to the community and to the fan base that the usage of Anakin, whose story was pretty much wrapped up. I don't know. I think that's a smaller thing. Would it have been nice? Yes, but it was never a requirement. I think again, I think his story was wrapped up, and so was Luke's. So again, like at best, the living character should have just been cameos, let alone Anakin, who's dead.
I think you've mentioned this about using them, and it's also from yeah. You mentioned about using them for marketing purposes, because of course you want to sell to old fans that liked the original stuff. And I don't think it would have sold as good if it was just Ray, Kylo, Finn, and Poe alone.
No, they would not have. Again, I don't misunderstand me. I know why they did it, but they hurt themselves in the long run by this decision. Here's the thing: they for short-term gains of ticket sales, they made the story integrally involve the veteran characters, but they clearly didn't want them to be there, so they underused, underdeveloped, and just simply kind of shoved them in the background, downright knocking Leia out for a whole film, and having Luke be nothing like himself, and having little to no explanation for why he is the way he is now. It's just, oh well, he's just an old angry hermit. Okay, there's just so much clashing of, well, we need the old characters for marketing, but we don't have any fucking plans with them because their stories were wrapped up, and we know that, so we have no intentions with them, so we just kind of have to shove them in. So the plot is fighting the fact that they were forced to bring back the legacy characters. And you're right, if they had not had them as an integral plot, which again, I do think a cameo still would have worked for trailer fodder to get people in seats, but to each their own on that debate. But the thing is, in the long run, they've hurt the Star Wars brand, like really strongly. Now, if we see a legacy character in a trailer, all we think is, oh fuck, they're gonna fuck these ones up too. Oh no, they're gonna ruin Boba Fett. They did, by the way. Oh no, they're gonna ruin Obi-Wan. They did, by the way. This is a pattern. Like the consequences of them being forced to bring back legacy characters for butts and seats has only hurt the franchise, has only hurt the community, and has only made people want to invest in things like Disney Plus less and less. So for short-term games, they have absolutely butchered their future.
I pretty much agree with that, and that's the thing that Disney seems to have been doing, even with Marvel. I observed, like for example, with Hawkeye and what was that? Moon Knight, maybe? Yeah, you know the old switcheroonie. We're gonna make this show about this character, but the most important character is this other character that comes in and kind of steals the thunder of it. You've mentioned Obi-Wan, and well, that's what's her name, Riva, in there. Same with Hawkeye.
Yeah, they just continually have new characters backing off of the backs of the veteran characters they know the community does like about. Because it's pretty clear they're confident that they can't write stories just about the new characters without them not working out. And the thing is, yeah, you're gonna not have as views if you include the veteran character, but that's a new fan base you're gonna start building back up. It's not even really a new fan base. It's gonna take them a little bit to get used to a new character. But you can still do that. Build a new character. Give them their own ground to start building off of, as opposed to relying on the veteran characters. Because once you bring a veteran character into the story, at that point, you have an obligation to have a level of the plot explain why they're there, explain where they've been, what's going on, where they're going, and why is the buck, and if the buck is about to stop for them and they're going to stop being heroes and they're going to hand over the torch to a new generation, showcase that as being something believable, but whilst and being something that is still respectable to the character that that people are there to see. So when they pass on the torch, it doesn't feel like they're giving it off to someone better. They're giving it off to somebody who has the potential to be better. Like they have an obligation to that when you bring back a veteran character. But the thing is, the writers and the showrunners clearly, and this is just with all shows, this is with Last Jedi and all, they bring in these veteran characters for the sales, for the tickets. But they don't do anything with them. The writers are so incompetent, they can't think of how to fit them in because they were so determined to make the story about Rey, to make the story about Kylo, Finn, Poe. The story was meant to be about them. But because they're forced to have these veteran characters in, they put them in there, but they don't do anything with them. They don't fulfill that obligation that they've been given at that point, narratively, to tell us what's happened with them and give us the justification for the buck being passed. Because they just didn't want them to be there to begin with. It was forced on them by executives. So that ends up hurting and destroying these stories a lot. If they only put in veteran characters like Luke, like Leia, and Han as cameos, then you have less obligation to explain where they've been. In fact, depending on how you do the cameo, you don't have to do any explanation at all. And you can still keep the story entirely self-contained around these new characters that you're developing and you're establishing without that crutch. Yeah, you're going to have less views. Yeah, you're going to have less people in seats initially. But you might have the exact same number you would have gotten with that we saw with The Last Jedi if you had built up to it and you had given these new characters the same time we had to get to know Luke, the same time we got to know Leia. You'll notice that in that original story, they didn't have veteran characters to lean on, but they still established themselves, and Star Wars became a household name because they were allowed to develop on their own. They had to stand on their own 2 feet. Modern writers and modern storytelling don't do that, and that is why we get such homogenized, vapid, hollow crap. Oftentimes. And that's how I would describe The Last Jedi in a lot of ways, because it is very much so as a character-driven film. And the action is not good enough to lean on for everything. And they just didn't do anything correctly here. It is my overall perspective. But yeah, underutilization of characters, that's where I stand. Uh-oh. Do we disconnect again?
Do you hear me?
No, I hear you. Okay, good.
Okay.
For a second, I thought we were disconnected.
No,
Okay, we're good.
I pressed the mute button on this one. It was a mistake,
Yeah, it's fine. All right, so see, we've been going. I don't want to push too much longer. I do want it to be a fairly concise debate. I brought up a lot of the points so far. Do you want to bring up another genre of thing? Because we talked about the characters, the underutilization of the veteran ones, the special effects, and we talked a little bit about we talked about the marketing. So I guess that leaves choreography and action. I think that's like the. Is there anything else left other than that?
I think that wraps it.
Okay, so I think that one's pretty straightforward. We don't have to go anything too specific, except for examples, of course. Obviously, the core example is the throne room fight.
What I guess is the main fight of the whole movie.
It's pretty much the big one, yeah. I'll let you go first on this one. I've been leading the charge on a lot of these. You go first.
I for one really enjoyed the way lightsaber battles have really evolved a long time from what it was in the original trilogy to this point in The Last Jedi. And while it might be silly and my preference for Hema isn't really that much in there, but I quite enjoy them for the things they're supposed to be. Two people fighting against elite guards and holding themselves against them, while also trying to perform as best as they can. In a way, for Rey, it's kind of weird that she's able to do that. While for Kylo, it kind of makes sense, but
Yeah, I would like to point at like my I guess my major issue with this scene. Let me say what I like about it first. What I like about the scene is I like the armor on the guards, and I do like the aesthetic of the scene. Like again, the throne room was nice, got a nice polished, reflective floor. You have the guards all covered head to toe in this big, bright red armor that contrasts very strongly with Kylo's black robes and Rey's dark gray and black. I guess they're kind of robes too. Uh, Actually, I'll call them
no,
scraps because
yeah,
I'll call them scraps because it's not a robe. It's kind of like it's fabric, but it's like
they're more like normal
tattered a little bit.
clothes in a way.
They're more like that, yeah, but it's kind of like wrapping. So I'll just call them scraps. In her scraps, the contrast is very strong against them. Plus, with her only blue lightsaber in the whole fight, she sticks out very strongly in the fight. So I think visually and aesthetically, like when it comes to the color and when it comes to the scene setup, I think it's really, really nice. Unfortunately, I think what I don't like about, and this goes for the whole trilogy, not just Last Jedi, I really hate the choreography in the lightsaber fights because, in my opinion, one of the objective improvements in the prequels was how they made lightsaber fights feel. In the prequel trilogy, they really sold the feeling that no one but a Force user could be in these kinds of fights because they were fast, they were visceral. Each blow and each target was something that was done at such a not only just a speed, but at a reflexive way that it felt like no normal human who didn't have some kind of sixth sense involved, like the Force would provide, would be able to keep up with a trained Force user in a lightsaber duel. That's what I really liked, and plus the implication of Force powers. But with this fight and with all the fights in the sequel trilogy, and we see it in Obi-Wan as well, the TV show, the Kenobi show, there's this weird... They go from, like, again, that fast-paced, almost kendo-inspired slashing of the blades to, I want to say, a really slow-paced smacking people with a hammer. Like, it's very blunt, things are just kind of whipped around, it doesn't feel as finesse, and the speed is so much slower. And the thing is, this fight was a fast-paced fight. It felt very claustrophobic at times, too, with how outnumbered they were. But despite that, it felt less fast, it felt less visceral, it felt less impactful than any of the fights we got in the prequels. And I really hate that they've regressed lightsaber duels so much compared to what we see in The Last Jedi, compared to what we see in The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. These are just not the same. And it's not even a case of just because it's not the same, it's bad. I think there's some objective points in how the choreography is done that I would say is objectively bad. And part of what made the fight so compelling in the prequels was the speed, was the eloquence, was the finesse. We just don't get that here. We get hints of martial arts being involved in how they move, and there's like one part in the fight where Rey force pushes a guy. But even with that, like it felt so clunky, and there were parts of the fight where the guards that they were fighting, and this is on camera, this isn't behind the scenes footage. On camera, they seem to be waiting for a fight cue. Like they don't take advantage of openings. They don't take advantage of when Kylo or Rey are completely got their back turned to them. They just stand there kind of waiting to jump in like it's a fight in a video game where they're waiting for a prompt. It's the more you watch it, the worse that fight looks, in my opinion. Like it just gets more and more disappointing, especially if you put it side by side with any of the fights in the prequels. I will say this, it's better than the fights in the original trilogy, in a sense. But it's nowhere near as good as the fights we got in the prequels. And I mean any of them.
Would you say that the fight acts more like a battle in the Yakuza games, where the enemies just surround you and wait for you?
Yeah. But they don't wait for you in the same way. Like in the Yakuza games, it's a video game. Like if they all attacked you at once with any opening possible, like a real fight would be, you'd be fucked every time. But a video game's got to give you a little bit of reprieve in between each combatant, otherwise you're not going to be able to keep up, and you're obviously going to lose. So in a video game, it makes sense. Here, it's just because of that it looks so bad. It's not a video game. This is not a button prompt QTE. This isn't a fight where the system has to give you a chance. Like, this is supposed to be a pre-planned out, choreographed scene between lightsaber users, and they could have done it better. Maybe this was their best take, but it came off to me like this was one of their first takes. I do feel that the choreographers, they do think that they could have. Not even them. Again, it's the actors. Really, it's not even the choreographers did their job really well, but it's the actors. They seem to miss cues almost. Okay, Rey has to move to block here, but because she didn't, the choreographer can't just jump in and hit her there anyway. It's not a real fight. He's trying to make it look like she's kicking their ass. So instead, he has to stand there awkwardly like an NPC in a video game.
I will have to look into this one with the fight again.
I can pull up the fight. See, The Last Jedi. Run. I'll have to mute it. Run scene. Alright, is this the whole? Hold on, is this the whole fight? Yeah, it does look like it includes the whole fight. Alright, so we'll do it like this. Alright, so I have it up on stream, so there's gonna be a bit of a delay for you, but let me see if I can screen share it with you. Actually, no, if I do, it'll screw things up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just have to wait for the delay to catch up every time. Alright, so we initially got Snoke after he got shanked. Jump ahead a little bit here. Alright, so she grabs a lightsaber. Let's go about mid-fight here. Alright, so fight begins here.
Yes.
Alright, so they go in slow motion and then immediately goes at a fast pace. Now, let me slow it down so we can catch these. Now again, my first viewing, I didn't catch any of this, but it is on subsequent viewings that I have seen the rest. Let's go half speed. Alright, so goes in, stabs, shanks, hits on over, backs off. Alright, so right there, saw it a second ago. See what this guy's doing over here? I'll let it catch up.
Okay, that one, yeah.
Yep. He is just waving his stick around while there's a whole side of Kylo open right there.
I see it.
Waits for someone in, hits in, slashes out. They have a complete opening right here to raise back. Now, this one's moving in, but this one...
And I saw the one going back.
Yep.
Just moving away from her.
Yep, that's the thing. On initial viewing, you will miss most of this. So, for first time viewing, there's an argument to be made that it's a really good fight. Problem is, most of the prequel fights I've rewatched hundreds of times, and I don't see any of these same things happening, these same mistakes. Yeah, and then you got parts of the fight like this where despite she's fighting one guy, despite the fact that several are still standing. So I have no idea why none of them are taking advantage of the fact she's wrapped up right now. This is where things like the other combatants don't seem to exist. And I'm sorry, but I have a hard time with how much it's shown that they're struggling against the guards. I have a hard time believing Kylo's taking on the rest of them on his own, while she's only taking on the one. Now, a couple of them are dead, but there's still several standing.
Mm-hmm. Now,
she's on her own.
With this information, I'm not really sure I can stand by my word anymore about it. Now that I say it like this.
Yeah, feel free to rewatch the fight a couple times and make your own determination. But that's generally, like, on my second viewing, I noticed a lot of that. Like, the choreographers are waiting for them at times to fight. And if this were a video game, makes sense. The game can't just have everybody attacking you and taking advantage of every opening possible, like a real fight, because you just never would win the video game. But in a game, but in a movie, you need to have justification for why there's openings while there is stuff being left open and no one's taking advantage. If she had had some kind of defense up, if she had some way to keep them away, or if she had blinded one of them, done something more than turn her whole back to them. I mean, that just would never happen in an actual fight. Not if you wanted to live. So, yeah, the throne room scene being the quintessential example of this. Yeah, I really don't like this scene. It looks fine on first viewing, so I'd say if anybody who does watch the sequel trilogy, watch it, don't think about it too much, and you'll probably enjoy it your first time through. But you can't help but notice some bits and bobs here and there if you watch it a second time. Ludus. Also, Asma, you are wrong. The prequels had more action-oriented lightsaber fights. The originals were a more emotional fight, specifically. How am I wrong? But the thing is, the argument wasn't about like the emotion or lack thereof. It was about the objective action element of it. That was what the talk was about, and that was and objectively the prequels improved on that. But you're saying I'm wrong about a point that was never addressed. Because of how it is shot, it exposes the choreography as well as... Yeah, that's the thing. You can usually save fights like this where they have those lull moments where there's openings by doing zoom-in shots, by doing cuts. Yeah, they could have fixed that on the editing floor, but it's clear they wanted to do like this big, like long shot of the fight to make it seem cool, but because of that, it exposes all the flaws that you don't edit out. So yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about choreography?
I'm gonna have to watch more. I'm gonna have to rewatch that right now, or
Okay.
soon enough. It kind of shattered my world a little, so everything's good.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Let's see. The prequels were more chirurgical. I don't know if I know that. Were more chirurgical. Is CHIRUGICAL. Chirurgical. Thought you said they were better overall. Sorry, I was saying to... Well, when I said overall, it was from an action point of view. We were talking about choreography. We'd moved on from the plot discussion. So you're right, I did say overall, but overall in the genre of choreography. So, action. Shad made a review of the throne room fight scene. Oh, that might be worth a watch. Shad being Shadversity, I think is the channel name. He does
I know
combat, medieval analysis stuff.
I've watched him quite a lot.
Okay. So, I think here's a good spot for us to say. So after this convo, how do you still feel about The Last Jedi? You still enjoy it? I hope I haven't like ruined an enjoyment of a film for you, but hopefully I did give you a new perspective on it.
You gave me a new perspective with the fight scene. About enjoying it, I will continue to enjoy it. I'm the guy that watched The Room and liked it.
I like The Room.
Perfect.
I like it because it's dumb, but I like the room.
Well, at least I'm not alone in the world.
No. It's a dumb film, but I absolutely love it.
Hey, that's what
I
makes
did
it
not
good.
hit her. I did not. Well, hi, Mark.
That's what makes it good.
That film should be preserved in the Smithsonian. Oh God, to be immortalized on the original version of it should be immortalized right in a bulletproof glass case for all time. Just having it playing on a monitor above the case 24/7.
I
He
love
he
that.
ran over. Yeah, he ran it over an hour on it. Shad did. Oh, okay, that must have been one hell of a rant. You can't enjoy so bad it's good films. You can't enjoy so bad it's good films. I can. I absolutely enjoy so bad it's good films. They're amazing comedy. They're amazing comedy. But okay, how does it rank against Attack of the Clones? The Last Jedi? I think The Last Jedi is a little bit worse. Slightly. Because Attack of the Clones was pretty bad. But I did enjoy more moments in it. I'd say if you watch Attack of the Clones purely for the action, it's better than The Last Jedi. Plot wise, though, I'd say Last Jedi might be actually a little bit better. And again, it did add Sir Christopher Lee as Dooku. I guess I don't know. I really loved his performance.
I
Shit.
think the Attack of the Clones is still better. Like, don't get me wrong, I think The Last Jedi is the best out of this trilogy, but I still think the prequels beat them. So
I agree. I do think the prequels beat it. That's the thing, though, is the plot in Attack of the Clones though had some major fucking issues. Actually, I'd say the plot isn't really even the problem. The plot felt worse because the acting at times. George Lucas is a terrible director. He's a terrible emotional director, I should say. He's a good visionary, but when it comes to like directing emotional scenes and stuff, I think he drops the ball pretty hard. But yeah, so you still enjoy the film. I'm actually glad of that. I didn't want to rob you of enjoying a film that you like. But for me, I still don't like The Last Jedi. I still dislike the entire Disney trilogy. I have a lot of major issues with Last Jedi. I'd say if there's any of them that, yeah, in terms of the ones I dislike, this one is a second worst. Rise of Skywalker is a little bit worse than this one is. But The Force Awakens I think is better. But the only reason I like that one is because it harkens back very strongly to A New Hope. So that's not a good sign when my biggest compliment is to anything is that it copies something else. So yeah, so more or less we're leaving as we came in, but we had a pretty good discussion.
yeah, indeed.
So thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming on and having being willing to have this discussion. You are certainly infinitely better. You were infinitely better before even agreeing to come on, but infinitely better than the other person who had this slot offered to them. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And if you ever want to do stuff in the future, let me know. That comes to me advertising your stuff. Let me copy the link from the description so I can share it with everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Turgor does have a channel. He's a variety channel, but he does go over some Warcraft, World of Warcraft stuff. I will link it right now. Just link it twice in chat. And yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for coming on, and I hope everybody has an amazing afternoon.
Good afternoon, then.